Their poison has devastated ecosystems, killing native species like monitor lizards, snakes, and even crocodiles.
At dawn in northern Australia, one of the world's most toxic invaders is being wiped out, and the killer is so small, most people would miss it entirely. Baby cane toads, armed with poison powerful enough to kill predators many times their size, are vanishing within minutes of hitting land.
Australian scientists have come up with a new weapon in the long-running battle against a foreign invader: cat food. Cane toads have swarmed across the country, destroying native species, but now a combination of cat food and ants is proving deadly.
Scientists expected nothing could stop this invasion. They were wrong. Something hidden in plain sight is dismantling an ecological disaster with ruthless precision. No chemicals, no human intervention. Just a brutal coordinated takedown no one predicted. And once you see what's really happening here, it completely changes how we think about fighting unstoppable species. Australia's greatest mistake unleashed. The conference room in Brisbane's Department of Agriculture and Stock buzzes with confidence on a humid morning in 1935. Regional Sugar Inspector Reginald Montgomery stands before a map of Queensland's cane-growing regions, pointing to the beetle damage spreading across thousands of acres. Import 102 cane toads from Hawaii, he argues, and watch them devour the grubs, destroying the colony's most valuable crop. The committee approves the shipment without a single field trial. Here's the thing nobody bothered to check. The beetles lived high up on the cane stalks, while the toads stayed firmly planted on the ground. It was like hiring a submarine to fight an air force. The toads completely ignored their intended targets and turned their attention to everything else breathing in the Australian bush. Within months, the catastrophic mistake became obvious. Native animals that had never encountered this level of toxicity began dying in massive numbers. But the bureaucrats had already declared victory, and by then it was far too late to contain what they had unleashed. And get this, these weren't ordinary pond frogs hopping around looking for flies. Cane toads are living weapons that can weigh over 5 pounds and grow larger than dinner plates. Their skin constantly secretes a milky white toxin called bufatoxin from massive glands on their shoulders. And this poison is potent enough to kill a full-grown crocodile in minutes. The toxin itself packs over 14 different compounds, each one designed to shut down a different body system. When an animal bites a cane toad, the poison floods their mouth and gets absorbed through mucous membranes. Heart rate spikes, then crashes. Nervous system shuts down. Convulsions, death. It's one of the most brutal ways to die in the natural world. But here's the catch. Nothing in Australia had ever encountered this kind of chemical warfare. Goannas, quolls, snakes, birds, even freshwater crocodiles learned too late that this slow, fat prey was actually a death sentence with legs. Entire species populations crashed wherever the toads established themselves. Within just a few generations, those original 102 individuals exploded into millions, and they were just getting started. The march of the toxic army. Today, more than 200 million cane toads occupy an area larger than Texas. Every year, the invasion front advances 25 to 37 miles, and they're accelerating. They've conquered the entire eastern seaboard, swept across the Northern Territory, and are pushing deep into Western Australia. Here's what makes this invasion truly terrifying. These toads are evolving in real time. The ones at the front lines now sport longer legs, allowing them to travel faster and cover more ground each night. Some researchers believe they're becoming more aggressive and adapting their breeding cycles to Australian conditions. People tried everything to stop them. Massive community events called Toad Day Out mobilized thousands of volunteers to collect toads by hand. Chemical warfare was attempted. Traps, barriers, even specialized toad hunting dogs were deployed, but every effort felt like trying to stop a tsunami with a bucket. Each female lays up to 30,000 eggs at a time, and with no natural predators, their numbers just kept exploding. For decades, Australia was losing a war against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Native wildlife was vanishing, and the continent was falling to an army of poison-skinned invaders. But then researchers noticed something small moving in the grass. And if you want to see how this impossible discovery could save an entire ecosystem, make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next changes everything we thought we knew about fighting biological invasions. The tiny, Warrior emerges. The hero of this story is smaller than your thumb and has been living in Australia for millions of years. Meet the meat ant, a native species known for incredible aggression and massive colony size. These ants earn their name because they can strip a carcass clean in hours, working with coordination that would make any military unit jealous. A single meat ant colony contains over 300,000 workers, spread across interconnected nests covering several acres. They operate like a distributed intelligence network. Scouts constantly patrol their territory, while workers stand ready to mobilize instantly. Their society is built for warfare, with specialized soldier ants, rapid communication systems, and tactical formations refined over millions of years. These aren't your typical backyard ants. Meat ants are larger, more aggressive, and absolutely relentless when they detect prey. Their mandibles can slice through tough insect carapaces, and their coordination during attacks is something that has to be seen to be believed. And here's the thing. While every other creature in Australia learned to fear the cane toad's poison, the meat ant had a secret weapon: complete immunity. The bufatoxin that kills birds, mammals, and reptiles has absolutely no effect on these tiny warriors. Cane toad toxin targets the nervous systems and hearts of vertebrates, animals with backbones. But ants are invertebrates with completely different biology. Their hearts, nervous systems, and muscle structure operate on entirely different principles. To a meat ant, a cane toad isn't a toxic monster. It's just an oversized, slow-moving meal. Here's the catch. The meat ant's secret isn't just immunity. It's their hunting strategy. These ants are most active during the hottest parts of the day, which happens to be exactly when young cane toads emerge from the water. Baby toads, called toadlets, are only about the size of a marble when they first leave their aquatic nurseries. At this stage, they're desperately vulnerable because they need shade fast to avoid drying out in the brutal Australian sun. But something is waiting for them on the shoreline. Nature's brutal efficiency unleashed. When a meat ant scout discovers a toadlet, it doesn't attack alone. Instead, it releases chemical signals that bring dozens, sometimes hundreds of other ants swarming to the location within seconds. What happens next is one of nature's most efficient killing machines in action. The toad's natural defense is to freeze and rely on its poison for protection. This instinct served cane toads well in their native habitat, but in Australia, it becomes a death sentence. While the toad sits motionless, thinking it's safe, the meat ants use their powerful mandibles to tear through its soft skin. The coordination is terrifying to witness. Some ants hold the toad in place, while others target vital areas. The attack is so fast and overwhelming that even if the toad tries to escape, it's usually too late. The ants can take down dozens of baby toads in a single afternoon, working with the kind of precision that only nature can produce. And get this, researchers studying this phenomenon recorded success rates that seemed impossible. 98% of baby toads were discovered by meat ants within minutes of leaving the water. 84% were attacked immediately. 90% of the escapees died within 24 hours from their injuries or stress-induced vulnerability to other predators. But this discovery was about to give scientists an idea that would change the entire war. The genius solution, hiding in plain sight. Rick Shine stands at the edge of a breeding pond near Darwin, watching Georgia Ward. Fear crouched down to examine something at the waterline. They're both researchers from the University of Sydney, and they've just had an idea that sounds almost too simple to work. Instead of fighting the toads with expensive technology or dangerous chemicals, why not just help the ants do what they already do best? Ward Fear begins placing small amounts of bait, everything from bits of meat to canned cat food, near the edges of ponds where toads are breeding. The theory is elegant: attract more meat ants to these shoreline areas. And maybe they can stop the next generation of toads before they even have a chance to grow up. The results hit them like a lightning bolt. By attracting more meat ants to these areas, they increased the ant population by over 400% in some locations. When Ward Fear calls Shine over to see the data, his eyes widen. The baby toads emerging from the water are walking straight into what is essentially a biological meat grinder. But here's the brilliant part of this solution. It's completely safe for native wildlife. Australian frogs have been sharing their habitat with meat ants for millions of years. They know exactly how to avoid them. Native frogs are typically active at night when ants are less active, or they're much faster and better at hiding than the invasive toads. The cane toads, having no evolutionary history with these predators, walk straight into the trap every time. It's like watching Australia's own immune system finally wake up and start fighting back. But the question everyone wanted answered was simple. Would it actually work in the field? Results beyond all expectations. The field trials produced results that shattered every expectation. In test sites where meat ant populations were boosted, toad recruitment, the number of baby toads that survived to adulthood, dropped by more than 50%. In population biology, that's catastrophic for the invading species. Here's the thing that makes this even more devastating: the ripple effect. Toads that survive the initial ant encounter but suffer injuries become easy targets for other native predators. Birds that normally couldn't touch a healthy toad suddenly have access to weakened prey. It's like the ants are softening up the enemy for other members of Australia's native forces to finish the job. And get this, the method is incredibly cost-effective. Instead of spending millions on high-tech equipment, researchers are literally using grocery store cat food to weaponize Australia's existing defenses. A single can of pet food can attract enough ants to protect hundreds of yards of shoreline. Field teams have now successfully implemented this technique across multiple sites in northern Australia. The beauty of the system is that once ant colonies establish themselves near breeding areas, they maintain their own populations. The toads unknowingly feed the very predators that are systematically destroying their offspring. But there's still one massive problem nobody wants to talk about. The war continues. This war is far from over. With over 200 million toads already established across the continent, complete eradication may be impossible. The meat ant solution is devastatingly effective at reducing new recruitment, but adult toads are too large for ants to handle. But here's the catch. Researchers are discovering that the toads may be facing other problems. Some scientists believe the rapid expansion has made the population vulnerable to genetic bottlenecks and inbreeding. Others theorize that the toads' own success might be setting them up for a population crash. There are also disturbing reports from the invasion front about changes happening faster than anyone predicted. Toads with longer legs are covering more ground each night, but they're also becoming more vulnerable to predators they've never encountered. Some birds have learned to flip toads over and eat only the non-poisonous parts like the liver and heart. The relationship between predator and prey is shifting in real time. Australian wildlife is adapting to the toxic invaders, while the toads themselves are changing in response to selection pressure. And in the middle of this biological arms race, the meat ants keep doing what they've always done best. Lessons from the outback. The story of the cane toad and the meat ant teaches us something profound about fighting invasive species. Sometimes the most effective solutions aren't high-tech gadgets or expensive chemicals. They're tiny warriors that have been waiting in the dirt all along. For almost a century, Australia has been losing a war against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Millions of dollars were spent on complex eradication programs that barely made a dent in the toad population. Meanwhile, the solution was crawling around underfoot, ignored by scientists who were looking for something more sophisticated. This isn't just about toads and ants. It's about understanding that nature has spent millions of years developing defense mechanisms we're only beginning to appreciate. Sometimes the best way to solve a biological problem is to step back and let biology handle it. Right now, at dawn in northern Queensland, a single column of meat ants converges on a marble-sized toadlet that just emerged from a breeding pond. The tiny predator that no one saw coming is writing the next chapter of Australia's ecological future, one coordinated attack at a time. Australia's deadliest invader has finally met something deadlier, and it was smaller than anyone imagined. What do you think about letting nature's own soldiers fight our battles? Subscribe to see how other tiny warriors are defending their homes against the next wave of biological invasions. And let me know in the comments what other ecological mysteries you want us to investigate.